Hey YouTubers, Kentucky Madman. I know it's been a while since I've been on here, but yeah, life happens. Anyway, got a newer Jeep, 2014 JK. Still have the TJ, but we got an issue with the axle. I don't know how well you can see that. Got a leaky seal on this on the driver's side. So I didn't want to have to get into doing something like this, but that's the Jeep life. Anyway, I'm going to go through steps I'm using. Might help you, might not, might be a waste of time, I don't know. Very first thing you want to do, obviously, is jack the car up. Make sure that you use car jacks underneath the car, and don't rely just on your jack. If the jack lets go, you end up with the Jeep on top of you, and that's never a good thing. So once you've got the car jacked up, back wheels blocked so it won't roll, leave the emergency brake on if you want to. That's a good idea too. Go ahead and remove your tires. Not the tires, the wheels. First thing you want to do is take off the brake caliper. And in order to do that, you may have to collapse the piston a little bit. I usually use a C-clamp, tighten it down after opening the brake reservoir. And then you take the bolts out. Don't worry about that and put that on the ground. And then we'll move on to the next area, which is taking out the wheel bearing assembly. That's held on by 3 bolts. These are star bolts. I would recommend using a 12-point socket on them, not a 6-point. You're going to get a better bite on it. You're not going to end up stripping it and then fighting with trying to cut it off or heat it up and just make life easier on yourself. So let me go ahead and get this bracket off, get everything set up, and I'll show you the wheel bearing, where the bolts are for that and what you need to do. Got the caliper off, the bracket, the rotor comes off. This is the bolt that you're going to be looking at. Try and I don't know how well you can see this. So you use a 12-point socket on this, and ½ inch will fit. You're going to want to clean it off, brush it with a wire brush, maybe hit some of the grooves to get the socket on, get the rust and crap off. Your first bolt is down here. Your second one's top dead center, and then the third one is down in there. You can see, maybe you can see the bolts come through the bearing. I normally take a wire brush, small wire brush, get them at Harbor Freight. It's a little 3-pack. You get a steel brush, a brass brush, and a nylon brush. And I'd show it to you, but I don't know where it went. Here it is. They got some longer ones and these. I'll use this. I'll knock all the heavy rust off of it, then hit it with a little bit of PV blaster. That's set for a minute. Hit both sides of the nut, or the bolt. Hit it on the threaded side that you can see, and where you're actually putting your socket. And that will, getting the rust off will keep it from boogering up the threads. It also allows the PB blaster to get in there and do what it needs to do. And I'll go ahead and get this bearing loose. One of the other things you're going to have to remove is this Allen wrench, this Allen head screw. That's for your sensor on there. You'll need to take that off because that's actually part of, it's connected to the bearing. Otherwise you end up pulling the cable and breaking it, and then you'll be crying about that. So let me get these bolts off and we'll show you where we are. Okay guys, a couple things I want to point out to you. You have this ABS sensor that's actually part of the, or I should say it's bolted to the wheel hub bearing, and you can take that, I think it's a 5mm Allen. You can take that out, and you're supposed to be able to pull the sensor out. Mine was giving me too much problem. It's like I don't want to mess that up, so I just unhooked the cable from the rest of the harness on the engine, and it follows your brake lines, comes up, and if you look behind the tower, you see these two holes. There's a clip-in connector there that you can actually disconnect that sensor from the car, and obviously just like if you bought the replacement piece. Went ahead and finally got the hub bearing loose. It was a pain. I don't think it's ever been removed. This Jeep's only got like 55,000 miles on it. Your backing plate will come off through that, and this will pull your axle completely out. Right now I'm draining the differential case, so I'm going to let that finish draining before I pull this out, just so I don't end up with any kind of a mess here, because I know the seal is bad. And we'll be doing the same procedure on the other side before we pull the cover off the differential. And once I get to that part of the project, I'll be back and show you what's going on there. Okay guys, we're over on the passenger side, and pretty much went through the same thing that you did on the other side. Again, I ended up taking out the ABS sensor wire. Tried pulling this one off, and instead of damaging it, it's easier to just pull the wire for me. If you do go that route, if yours are stuck, you don't want to mess them up and buy new ones. But this is the same as the other side, except it's a little bit easier. The other side, you have to undo it from underneath. There's no other way to get to it. On this, it's the same thing. You'll see the little clips behind the shock tower cover here. And you can actually pull this fender skirt out, which allows you to get in, pull the little red tab off of the connector, disconnect the wire, and you're good to go. One thing I did notice, yesterday I said, or earlier I said that the 3 bolts holding on the wheel hub were 1/2 inch 12-point. They're actually a 13. There was so much rust and gunk on mine. The 12 basically cleaned the grooves off so the 13 would fit. So if it's a newer vehicle and you don't have all the rust, you can probably go with the 13 right off the bat. If not, like I said, I put a 1/2 inch 12-point on there to clean some of the stuff off, and then the 13 was able to go on. I pulled everything off. I'm down to getting the wheel bearing out. These do not come out easy. You have to beat on it. I've got penetrating oil, PB blaster. Problem with these, and I don't know why they don't do this from the factory, I end up, after I get these apart and clean them up, I put some never sees on it. Should I ever have to get into it again, it makes it easier to pull this off. I do the same thing with all my bolts. I clean them off, I run a thread file over them, get the rest of the rust out, and then before I put them in, I put a little bit of anti-seize on it. Again, it protects keeping some of the rust from building up, and it makes it easier taking it apart should you have to do that again. Started working on this side, trying to get this bearing off, and what I did, I put a bunch of PB blaster on there, let that soak in. I hit on it a few times trying to get the PB blaster to actually penetrate in, which it did. Tried something different. I took an old putty knife that I have, it's kind of a beat around, and I started trying to squeeze that between the wheel bearing and the dust shield. So I was running that in between these 2 points. Got almost all the way around it, okay? And I had problems in this bottom corner, but it was not that big of a deal. I started hitting on it again, and immediately I noticed I had plenty of play in the dust shield. So a couple more hits, and we should well, maybe I was wrong. Nah, I'm close. I'm close. Take a little pry bar, get that in here. And there you have it. The whole thing is loose. You know, I haven't done anything with the differential cover or anything yet. With these Dana 30s, you can actually pull the axle out without getting into the differential. So let me show you what's going on with these things. This is the back of the bearing. And you can see how nasty and rusty it is. You got the same thing on the steering knuckle. You got nothing but rust and gunk. Let's see if I can get in there. Not cooperating with me. There we go. So what I end up doing, once I get this out completely, I'll go ahead and take a wire brush. I'll probably put it on a drill. I'm not going to do it by hand. And I will go and clean both the back of the bearing and the steering knuckle. Once I've got it cleaned off, wipe it down, I'll take a very thin coat of anti-seize and run that around both mating surfaces, on the bearing and on the hub, before I put it back together. That way, should I have to get back into it, it'll be a lot easier to take it apart. If I don't get back into it, the next owner has to get into it, it'll make life a little easier on them. I don't know why they don't do it at the factory. It would probably cost them an extra $1 per vehicle to do it, but that's not, they don't have to work on them, so they don't care. Some of the other vehicles, now this is steel on steel. A lot of the newer vehicles, the steering knuckles are aluminum, and your bearing housing is steel. When you mix steel and aluminum together, there is an electrical reaction between the two, and they will actually almost weld together. My wife had a Saturn. It took 2 guys beating on the hub with sledgehammers to actually get the thing to break loose, and that was after I tried with everything that I could. Again, it's another one of those things. If there was a little anti-seize in there, you wouldn't run into that problem. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this axle out and then start working on getting the differential cover off, and we'll see what we see when we get into that. All right, we're getting ready to work on the differential. I want to show you a couple things real quick. This bolt up here on the front of your cover is for filling with your gear oil. It's not a drain. You look towards the back. A lot of you guys probably already know this stuff, but this is for anybody that hasn't worked on one of these and doesn't know. You can see all the way back here, there's a plug on there. And it's like, well, it's square. Take an extension and pop it in there. Of course, it's not one. Okay. an extension will fit right in there. Then you put your ratchet on it and just unscrew it. And that's your drain. And that'll get a good portion of the gear oil out. Not all of it, but a lot. Now this plug also has a magnet on the bottom. So when you pull it out, check it, and you can kind of tell what kind of shape your gears are in. I have a little bit of wear and tear showing up on there. There was a little bit when I pulled it off. That is not a factory seal on there. You can see there's there's RTV sealant up on the housing. It's gooing out at the bottom and everything else. I'm not going to use the RTV. You can. I actually purchased a gasket to replace this. So these bolts are 13 millimeter, and it doesn't matter the order that you take them off. When you put them back on, you do want to follow an order, and when we get to that point, I'll let you know what that is. The cover off, and when I said to leave those two bolts in, I meant to. You can loosen them up, but don't take them out to keep that cover from flying off. What's really important here is when you go to take these caps off, you have to take the carrier out to get to these seals. They're inner seals instead of outer. You want to mark these. They have to go back on in the same position they're in when you take it apart. I think somebody has, like I said, already been in this, but if you look on this cap, you can see a red spot up there. And also stamped on the housing of the differential, it looks like the letter J. And right above that C, it looks like there's another J stamped. Notice the J is upside down on this side. When you come over to the other side, they have the J stamped horizontally. And you can see right at the C, there's another J stamped in there. So that gives you the two sides. And this also has the red dot. Sorry about the shakiness, I'm kind of laying here. It's got the red dot at the top. So when you go to put this back together, make sure that those pieces are where they're supposed to be, and you should be good. I skipped a few steps here without you. As you can see, I've gone ahead and taken the ring gear out, spider gears and all that. It's basically 4 bolts, 2 on each side. I think I said it before, when you take this off, you want to make sure that you mark them, because you need to put them back on the same side they came off of in the same direction they were on, top to top, bottom to bottom. New parts ready to go in. This is a Spicer axle seal, oil seal. And what you want to do is get I guess you could try and beat these in with the hammer or something like that. I would recommend, I got this off of Amazon, it was 20 bucks. It's a seal installer, and it'll work for the 30, 44s. You have this cup and the rod. There's a little spacer on here and a nut. And what you will do with this is take your new seal, and it will actually fit right inside there. So that way you're getting the entire seal to seat evenly all the way around. Once you get the two together, and I'm not going to have it together here to show you this, but you would take this installing tool, stick it in the side you're going to install, and then you see that this, maybe you can't, the flat side to the opposite and holds it. You might be able to see that there. And then you just turn this nut, and that will go ahead and drive the seal into where it's supposed to be. And hit the seal on your install tool. You want to make sure that you have that seal as level as you can, or squared up, plumb, however you want to say it. And then you can see that the other piece, the other side of it, covers the opening where the other seal would go. And then we just start tightening the nut, and that's going to push the seal in. Like I said, you just crank this nut, and that's pushing that seal in. You'll have a little bit of resistance on this, as you would expect, as the seal is being seated. Now what I want you to see, that brownish goldish lip that you're seeing is the seal housing frame, and you can see that it's not seated yet. Let's see, where are we? There we go. You can see that there's still a gap between the axle tube and the bearing. So I've got a few more turns on this, and once the thing seats, you'll be able to tell by the feel on the wrench. It's not going to be impossible to turn, but it's going to be very hard to turn. So you want to stop at that point, check it. If it's not seated, give it another quarter turn, whatever it takes, and check it again. Make sure that seat is together, the lip and the axle tube. The thing that I skipped showing you guys is getting the old seals out, and the easiest way to do that, I've got I don't know if you can see that, it's just a piece of 1-inch steel tube. What you want to end up doing with this is taking it and sliding it in. You go ahead and slide that in the axle tube itself and push it up until you hit the seal. Once you hit the seal, get a hammer and tap on it, and it'll end up driving that seal out of the axle. And like I said, this is, I don't know, a little over 3 feet. Driver's side is short, passenger side's a lot longer, it's a lot farther in. So just wanted to let you know that before I went further. We've got the seals in, and before you do anything, before you put your carrier back in, you want to take a little bit of grease and you want to lightly coat. You don't need a whole bunch of grease, but you want to lightly coat the inner portion of this seal. And then you also want to put a light coat of grease on the axle itself before you try sliding it in. This will keep the seal from getting damaged and pushed around, and when you first start rolling with it, you'll have some lubrication in there, so you don't end up messing up the seal and having to go through this a second time. Okay, I've got the carrier back in, and I've got the caps on. Again, they're marked the same way they came off. Got the little red dot at the top. I got the horizontal J, and I got the vertical J. And what you want to make sure you do is those shims that you took out, which is this silver piece that you see back here. You got one on each side. You want to get those started at the same time. You can't really put those in and then slide everything in. There's just not, it's not that forgiving. So it'll take a little bit of
work going back and forth trying to get it in there. Once you do have it lined up, it pretty much slides right in. The torque on these is 45 foot-pounds. Okay, I start at the top on this side. I generally will torque stuff 10 pounds, well, depending on, this time I'm going to go 10 pounds less than the 45 for my initial tightening. And then I'll go back over it and torque it down to the spec, which is 45 pounds. Now readjust the torque wrench up to 45. And we'll go from there. There's 45. And 45. So we're set on that. We're down to messing with the axle before we put it back in. And like I said, you want to make sure you put some grease. I put a little bit around the spline itself, and then on this machined area. And what that's going to do is prevent any issues with the new seal that you just installed. You're going to have two of these little plastic rings. These are to help you get the axle in without beating it against the seal and so forth. I've never used them, mainly because every time I've gone into one of these, they weren't there. You can put this together without them. I figure it was on it. I'm just going to use them and see if it makes things that much easier. Want to use clean grease and make sure that your hands are clean. You don't want any kind of gritty crap on your hands before you do this. And I told you that I will generally, see, this is a nice silver. This isn't because I've ground it down or anything. I cleaned it up, took off the rust, and then put a light coat of Never Sees on there, which is just the Permatex anti-seize compound. This stuff is wicked. You get it on your hands, you'll have it all over the place. So if you do that, take your time with it. Try and keep it off your hands. I'll do the same thing with the bolts that made up to the wheel bearing hub. And also, once I get the caliper bracket, when I get to that point, I'll clean those threads up and put a light coat on them also. And let's see how things go here. Let's get a little bit of grease on that. Doesn't take a whole lot. Like I said, you just want to make sure that you've got some kind of a lube on that so it doesn't distort the seal or push on the seal when you're installing it. And that'll keep things where they should be as you complete this wonderful project. Something I should mention is after you take the axles out and you get the old seals out, you want to clean the tube the best that you can. I just take a rag. I use that same piece of square metal tubing, stick the rag in it, wrap it around it, and run it in and out a few times. If it's real gunky, you can spray a little brake cleaner in there to help loosen some of the stuff up. You really would just want to get all the rust and small particles that may be in there out, and that'll avoid any problems with any of that stuff coming in contact when you're putting this together.
See the brakes and everything put back on. Thanks to the guy in the back row that yelled, "Hey dummy, you forgot to put the backing plate on." The bolts that hold the wheel bearing hub are 75 foot-pounds. If you take the caliper apart, the caliper to the bracket are 26 pounds, and then the bracket itself is 120 pounds. Just wanted to get that out there so you know about it. We're down to final steps here. I'm going to go ahead, instead of using the RTV, which you can use RTV only on these. I had a gasket for a Data 930 here. This is a metal with paper on both sides and a sealant. You want to make sure that you have this surface as clean as you can get it. Wipe it down with some brake cleaner, carb cleaner, something like that after you've got all the stuff scraped off, and you want to do the same thing with your cover. Easiest way to do these is to start with just the top. I don't know if you can see that, you probably can't. You want to start with the top center bolt. You put the gasket on the bolt, you hold it up, you get it started, you don't tighten it down all the way. Then you can get all the other bolts in without binding up the gasket. As I told you, when you go to torque this down, you don't want to just start and go around it. You want to do a crisscross pattern. So you would start like here, go caddy corner, go caddy corner, go caddy corner, go caddy corner, caddy corner, caddy corner, caddy corner, bottom, top. That will make sure that the cover is on flush, square. It should avoid any kind of leaks if it's done properly. This is another one that I will tighten this down to the specs, to what the torque is. I forget it off the top of my head. I'll let you know that when we get things in place. And I will go probably about 5 pounds less than what they're calling for first, and then I'll go over it, all the bolts again at the recommended torque. I do this just out of habit. The first time you tighten it down, you're getting everything to mate up, seal good, and then when you do the final torque, you know that everything's where it should be, and you're going to have a solid seal. Okay, you got everything on finger tight. No, it's not going anywhere. I snugged it up slightly with the ratchet just so everything was seated. And I may have, I was doing that upside down before, I may have confused you guys. I'm going to start with this top bolt right here. The spec on these is 25 foot-pounds. I'm going 20 first time around. Okay, there's my 20. So now I want to go caddy corner, which brings me down to this bolt here. And we'll do the same thing. There's my 20.
Now you don't want to jump over here, you want to go up here. That would be the next in your sequence. And there's my 20 on that. So from this point, I've gone from here, here, here. I'll come down here next. After this one, I'll move up to this top right corner. Then I'll come down to the left corner. And I'll come across to the right corner on the bottom. Hit the top on the left. Hit the center on the left. Hit the center on the bottom. And then I'll go back over them again at 25. And that'll take care of this. The plugs on these said it was, I think that was 25 also. I mean, it's a little backwards on that. I just tightened these to 25 and 30 is the foot-pounds on these. Your fill and your drain plugs are 25 foot. Torque down where it should be. We're good to go with that. Just need to put the gear oil back in. I shouldn't say back in. We need to fill it with gear oil. It'll be new, brand new gear oil. This takes 80 weight, 90. I have never found an easy way to do this with the jugs that you buy. What I have ended up doing, and have used this numerous times, is you take one of the caps and cut it off so you've got a decent size opening, and then I just wire tied a piece of hose to it. This allows you to stick the hose in the hole, and then you can position the bottle somewhere higher so you can get the fluid to go in and you're not having to fight trying to get something in that tiny little hole. So I'll go ahead and get started on this, and that should take care of things. Alright guys, I got the all the oil back in, got the plug back on, torqued it down to 25 foot-pounds per the specs in the factory service manual. Need to put the wheels on it and I'm good to go. Wanted to let you know you can go about this a different way. I pulled the wheel bearing and the axle out in one piece. You can also unbolt, unbolt the axle from the wheel bearing and pull it apart. To me, it's an extra step that you don't have to do. So, I mean, if you want to do it, or if your bearings are shot and you need to replace those at the same time, I'd go ahead and do that. Otherwise, I just pop it out the way I showed you, which is with the wheel bearing, hub, and the axle still connected in one piece. The rest of the job is the same. It's not a quick job. You're not going to get it done in a couple hours. In fact, I talked to my buddy over at a transmission, or not a transmission shop. He's got a regular shop, and the guys there won't even mess them. They send these over to a transmission shop to do them because the amount of time that's involved with it. So, if you've got the time, want to do it yourself, it can be done. The hardest part is getting everything apart. When you get to the point where you got everything apart and cleaned up and start putting it back together, it's a breeze. It doesn't take that much time at all. I will, in about a week or so, check the torque on my differential cover. If you're using cork or paper or whatever, it's not that they're going to loosen up on you. In fact, once the oil gets on that cork or the paper, it actually swells just a little bit, which will take care of any imperfections and prevent further leaking and so forth. It's just another one of those things that I do. It doesn't hurt. It'll take me 5 minutes to check, make sure that they're still torqued and not leaking. I appreciate you guys checking in. I know this one's more of a ramble, and I missed a few things on video, but hopefully you get the gist of it, and your project will go good. Appreciate it again. Take care, buddies. See ya.